Call of Duty is known for its gritty depictions of war and playable shooters, but below the surface there's a rich narrative spanning 10 games over the past 15 years. Players have become familiar with Call of Duty Zombies. Starting off as a simple and small PvE side mode in the franchise has quickly grown into one of the most convoluted and ambitious storytelling we've seen in gaming. By now, we've come to know what to expect from Treyarch's storytelling in particular. Stories featuring the manipulation of time, be it through the character's experience of time travel or through the non-linear structure in which maps are released. There's this exploration of objective reality and escaping reality through concepts like dimensions beyond our own and incorporating multiverse theories, as well as the moral and inner psychological conflicts the characters experience throughout their journeys, often leading the characters to become involved in deception with the goal of maintaining a lie to each other or to themselves. The stories can become quite ambiguous and open-ended as a result, with many having made attempts over the years to discuss and piece the puzzle together into a cohesive plot for players to understand, with Treyarch themselves even releasing a written timeline of events back in 2017. But I think one thing has been lost in this community search for cohesiveness. What does any of it actually mean? Because while Zombies has been great in offering us a power fantasy in that we mow down hordes with wonder weapons, control over otherworldly elements, and an avenue for knowledge seekers to enjoy its plethora of hidden Easter eggs and quests, all wrapped up in map designs meant to resemble that of popular fantasy stories. It seems that the developers also use this mode as a stage to enact a much more meaningful play to explore philosophical and existential themes from the nature of consciousness to religion to the question of good and evil itself. I'll try my best in this video to explore all these different themes and what they actually mean in relation to the Aether storyline and its characters. I will, however, be making a separate video for the Chaos and Dark Aether storylines because while they do feature similar philosophical themes, the religious nature of Aether becomes replaced with classical mythology and even deeper spirituality in Chaos. And we see this even change again as we move into Dark Aether, which features a mix of ancient mythology, con-spirituality and psychology. We can see the stories become more refined as we move into Chaos and Dark Aether, and the visions for the story become clearer. I can only assume since Aether went through a few changes and the teams were still finding their footings and creating a zombies experience, that the story can go off the rail at times, but let's get into it, guys. At the centre of the Aether story ultimately is this idea of duality, a philosophy that proposes mind and matter are of two separate substances, which we see demonstrated quite early on with Samantha and Richtofen switching bodies by using the MPD to astral travel back in Black Ops 1, hitting home this idea that our souls are really separate from our bodies. This concept is what allows the zombies, essentially just a human without a soul, to exist in the first place. But it goes deeper than that. This splitting of reality into its opposites is interwoven into all aspects of the story, with the first map even being called Night of the Living Dead and the final map being called Day of the Dead. I think what is interesting though is how our characters experience this duality within their own being, and how this inner conflict is almost projected to become the in-game world we play through today.
Well, I've always liked the monster within idea. I like the zombies being us.
We play through the first couple of games as the Ultimus crew in pursuit of Richtofen's goal of controlling all of reality. In a race against Samantha, they eventually fail, and this is where the stories and our characters ultimately split, be it Richtofen, Samantha, or even Maxis himself. Where Ultimus represented selfish or repressed desires were introduced to the Primus crew, portrayed as heroes, driven by ego, and only concerned with doing the right thing for everyone. Richtofen becomes a zealot, and our crew become knights in sour armour, willing to go to any lengths to fight for a better tomorrow. The way the story is laid out has brought a lot of people to the conclusion that Ultimus is a past version of our characters and Primus is a new version, but they're actually the exact same people.
You need to stop thinking in terms of originals, old and new. It's not like that. When you look in the mirror, it's still you. If you crack that mirror, you see multiple reflections. It doesn't mean you've actually multiplied, does it? Honestly, I'm not sure why I'm trying to explain it. Shit's fucked up. Please, fix it.
The character's inner world, and therefore their inner conflict between these two desires, are actually being manifested into the reality that we play through, with Primus wanting to repress their shadow selves and undo the mistakes made during Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2. We spend Black Ops 3 collecting their souls in hopes to stop the previous events from unfolding and bring peace to the universe again. At the end of Revelations though, both the characters and us as players reach our own revelations, and that the actions taken by the Primus crew are what sets everything else in motion, trapping them in a paradoxical time loop resembling Nietzsche's theory of eternal return, and that we're doomed to repeat all our actions time and time again for all of eternity.
He opened the portal between the worlds and, well, that's where and when shit really went tits up. World within the world got turned upside down and inside out, if you can imagine such a thing.
It's this act of splitting into black and white duality that not only traps our characters in an endless war with themselves, but it also manifests these cosmic archetypes from the depths of their psyches into the cosmos itself, creating this awesome galactic war between the Keepers and Apothicons headed by Monty and the Shadowman. It was popularly believed that the Shadowman was the root of all Ultimus Richtofen's evils by hearing voices of corruption after touching the MPD. Likewise, with Monty forcing Primus Richtofen to follow his plan to a T to secure a better tomorrow, suggesting that he was merely just a pawn to them. But what if I said it was the other way around? That Richtofen was actually hearing his own inner voice after touching the MPD, that Richtofen was indeed following his own plan from the projections of fantasy and dreams upon the Chronorium. Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung wrote about such conflicts and religious symbolism later in his book Modern Man in Search of a Soul, and this inner civil war a person can experience during periods of neurosis.
Because the Great War? No. The greatest war is the one we fight against ourselves.
So ultimately, there was no Great War, not in the cosmic sense at least. Monty and the Shadowman were mere manifestations of our characters' desires, just in the same way we're pawns to our own desires. Their outer world was a representation of their inner world. It wasn't until Richtofen had played out both fantasies long enough did he finally begin to see the truth and bring unity to two warring halves of his personality, by understanding everything isn't as dualistic or black and white as they might initially appear.
This doctor, he tells me one more thing. He tells me he realizes that Dr. Monty is not inherently evil. Dr. Monty, he says, is trying to save the multiverse the safest way he knows how. By forcing us into this cycle, our story will never end. But also, his universe and his existence will be guaranteed. I can't blame him, he says. Dr. Monty is much like you and me. He just wants to survive. He doesn't want to risk his own annihilation. I tell him, well, if we are doomed to meet here again and again until the end of existence, perhaps there is something we can do to change that. He looks at me with a smile and says, I think you are right, old friend.
That's the exact moment the cycle actually broke. Richtofen's new revelation that a single person can contain the capacities for both good and evil. We see our characters reunite with their other halves in the final game, Black Ops 4, as they begin a search for both the Elemental Shard, a representation of mind, and the Apothicon Blood, a representation of matter, eventually containing them both in the Agarthan device called the Seal of Duality. Sealing both objects inside, everything becomes one again, and a new non-dualistic universe is born without the zombies, and all the chaos brought on from their inner civil war. Our characters find their peace, and Richtofen becomes whole again. Treyarch seemed to be telling a story here about what it means to be human, but also what it's like to experience psychological distress that some of us, if not all of us, experience at some point in our life. That feeling of being torn apart by two separate desires, especially your conscious and unconscious. But be careful and conscious of what you wish for, because you might just get it.
You are more than just my allies, my brothers in arms. You were my friends.
I would like to return to my home, my beloved, before the bombs fell. If only to die by her side.
I see myself at peace, serene, sitting beneath a cherry blossom tree, listening to the joy of my children at play.
I think I'd like to teach medicine, maybe pathology.
You know, the more I think about it, the more I think I'd be a darn good DI. Get those kids toughened up.
I would like to be in favorite bar, but as long as I have vodka, I am happy man.
I would like to know for sure that I brought honor to my ancestors and the Emperor.
I should probably try to relax. Take up a hobby. Maybe I could open my own morgue.
Let me think about it. Wherever I go, you know I'll be kicking ass.